The Penn State Nittany Lions have the potential to be a very dangerous team in the 2023 college football season and could possibly be a dark horse for the college football playoff. In this video, I'm going to be going over and discussing all the keys that make Penn State so dangerous and how they could get their first playoff berth since the college football playoff began back in 2014. Now, before we even start to look ahead at the 2023 season, we first need to recap their 2022 season. The Nittany Lions went 11-2 in 2022 and capped off their season with a win over back-to-back Pac-12 champions Utah in the Rose Bowl. Now, prior to facing Utah in the Rose Bowl, Penn State did not have a win over a ranked opponent, which might seem a little concerning, but they still were a very solid team in 2022. Their most impressive win of the season was probably on the road at Auburn, where they absolutely dismantled the Tigers. Now, I know Auburn wasn't really good this year and they had a pretty bad year, but still, going into Jordan-Hare with all the hype surrounding that game and dominating them in the fashion they did was very impressive. Their two losses weren't necessarily bad either, as they came to two playoff teams in Michigan and Ohio State. So essentially, they won the games they were supposed to win but couldn't pull off any upsets to get them into the college football playoff or a Big Ten championship game. Now, the Michigan game was just totally lopsided, and they clearly got outplayed by a great Michigan team. But the Ohio State game at home was a little different. Penn State was controlling this game for a long time, especially in the first half, as they were even leading at halftime. And if it wasn't for Sean Clifford's turnovers and some other mistakes down the stretch, I think Penn State easily could have won that game, and who knows how the rest of their season would have played out if they did so. But nonetheless, they have a solid 10-2 regular season record, topped off with a Rose Bowl win. Penn State was led by veteran quarterback Sean Clifford all year in what I believe was his 6th season, but I honestly have lost count with the COVID years and he's just been there for so long. But he did get drafted by the Packers, so good for him. Now, Sean Clifford has gotten a ton of hate pretty much his whole career, but especially this season. He's been a very inconsistent quarterback, having his fair share of ups and downs, but I think the man deserves some respect. He's obviously not the most talented or athletically gifted quarterback in the world, but he gave this program his all, and he brought them their first Rose Bowl victory since 1995 while setting the school record for most passing yards, even though he did it in like 6 seasons. But still, my point is this man gets a ton of hate and really just deserves some respect. Penn State also had one of their best recruiting classes in program history last year that ranked 2nd in the Big Ten and 7th nationally. This class included big name players such as quarterback Drew Aller, running backs Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen, linebacker Abdul Carter, and many more. Obviously, Drew Aller was the backup to Clifford this year, so we didn't get to see him play a ton. But players like Singleton and Allen really showed they can be a dangerous backfield duo. Prior to coming to Penn State, Nicholas Singleton was the Gatorade National Player of the Year in the 2021-2022 high school season, and in his freshman campaign, he racked up just over 1,000 yards on 156 carries with 12 touchdowns, averaging almost 7 yards a carry, which is not bad at all. Now, a lot of people are already saying that this guy can be the next Saquon Barkley, so I went ahead and compared Singleton's freshman season stats to Barkley's, and here's how they matched up. In 2015, Saquon had more yards and more attempts than Singleton, but Singleton averaged more yards a carry and also had more touchdowns than Saquon. This really shows that the potential for Singleton is really there, and it is extremely high. Kaytron Allen also racked up good numbers as he went for 867 yards on 167 carries for 10 touchdowns, averaging just over 5 yards per carry. These two backs were very promising last season and are expected to make even bigger leaps this year. Abdul Carter is another very notable player that stood out last year at linebacker and is also expected to make big strides in improving his game this offseason. This high recruiting class has been with the program for a year now, so now they are matured and are well fitted with the program and have an even better opportunity to ball out this season. Now, that pretty much recaps last season, which shifts the focus to the upcoming 2023 season. Along with their top 10 2022 recruiting class, the Nittany Lions added to their roster with another solid class in 2023, which ranked top 15 nationally. Along with these elite recruits are 5 preseason All-Americans for the Nittany Lions. These preseason All-Americans really emphasize how much talent Penn State has and the high expectations that are placed for that talent. Athlon Sports released their list back in May, and it included offensive lineman Olumawu Fashanu, cornerback Kalen King, defensive tackle Chop Robinson, running back Nick Singleton, and linebacker Abdul Carter. Again, this is just a preseason list, but it just really goes to show how much talent is really on this Penn State team. Now I'm going to start breaking down 3 key aspects that are crucial to the Nittany Lions' success this year. The first one that's probably the most obvious is their quarterback play. Because in the past, Penn State has not been known for producing elite quarterbacks that are top draft picks, like you see out of Ohio State, Clemson, LSU, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow. Penn State really hasn't been known for that. They've had some decent above-average quarterbacks like Trace McSorley and Sean Clifford, but in recent memory, they have not been known for producing elite quarterbacks, and in my opinion, this has been a key aspect that has held them back from reaching the college football playoff. However, the case this year is very different because of one man by the name of Drew Aller. Drew Aller was rated as one of the best players in the entire 2022 recruiting class with elite arm strength and athleticism, standing at 6'5", 232 pounds. We obviously didn't get to see much of him last year on the field, but there were glimpses of him, and they were pretty promising. A couple weeks ago after practice, James Franklin spoke with the media and was strongly praising Drew Aller for his composure in the pocket. He talked about how a lot of guys kind of have happy feet in the pocket and move around too much, but he really emphasized how effective Drew Aller is in the pocket and how this composure really benefits the offense. Drew Aller is already getting comparisons to Josh Allen, and he hasn't even started a single college game yet. So that's some pretty high standards to live up to. But again, we haven't seen Aller play much in college, so we're not 100% sure if he can transfer all his talent over to the college level, but the potential and talent are definitely there. The second aspect that is important in the Nittany Lions' success this year is their schedule. When you take a look at it, it seems a little intriguing, especially with West Virginia being that first game. But when you really break it down, it actually becomes pretty manageable and winnable. That first game against West Virginia is really interesting, and I think it would be a great test for the young stars, and it could be one of those sleeper games where West Virginia comes out and beats them. But I think with all the hype being a night game and everything, I just think that West Virginia won't be able to outlast them. Then they have a pretty easy stretch with Delaware and Illinois, although they have to make sure they don't have a repeat of 2021. Then they get Iowa in their whiteout game where they can get revenge from 2021, and they should be able to handle Northwestern and UMass. Now after this, in week 8, things start to get interesting, because in week 8 they play Ohio State, and every year the two biggest games for Penn State are Ohio State and Michigan, and lately they just cannot seem to get over the hump. The past 2 years they've lost to both of them, and the last time the Nittany Lions beat Ohio State was 7 years ago in 2016. And even if they do go 1-1 against these teams, they seem to get upset by some other team. Like in 2019, Minnesota, or in 2017, it was Michigan State. And in 2016, they dropped that early game at Pitt, even though they probably still should have gotten in the college football playoff, but that's a whole other topic for a separate time. The point here is Penn State needs to get over this hump if they want to get into the college football playoff, and at least be one of them this year. Now this Ohio State matchup will be very tough in Columbus, especially if both teams are undefeated. It will probably be a night game. There will be a ton of hype surrounding it, and it'll be a very hostile environment. This game will be a great test for the Nittany Lions, and even if they lose this game, which is likely, the rest of the schedule, aside from Michigan, is very winnable, especially with that MSU game, with the last game of the year being played at Ford Field on a Friday. That kind of takes away the upset scare there. So even if Penn State loses to the Buckeyes, they still have a chance to beat Michigan at home, which would leave them at 11-1. And who knows, maybe they do go into Columbus and upset Ohio State and then beat Michigan at home. They could go 12-0, go to Indy, and then make the college football playoff. Or maybe they upset Ohio State and then just fall asleep to Michigan at home and drop that one. But the point is, they need to win one of those games if they want to get in. And then if they do go 11-1, barring the outcome of the Michigan-Ohio State game, they could potentially find themselves playing in the Big Ten Championship. And even if they don't go to Indianapolis, they could still sneak into the playoff with an 11-1 record, depending on what happens with other teams and other conferences. So overall, I think their schedule isn't that hard, aside from that Ohio State game, which I think really helps them and gives them a great shot at making the playoffs. Now, the last important piece for this Penn State team this year is the overall strength of their roster. Now, we already talked about their elite recruiting classes and quarterback play with Drew Aller, but the talent doesn't stop there. When you take a look at this roster, there is just talent all across the board. 5-star quarterback Drew Aller leading things off. Running backs Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allen in the backfield have the potential to be a very dangerous backfield duo, arguably one of the best in the country, right up there with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards of Michigan. Preseason All-American offensive lineman Olumawu Fashanu opting out of the NFL draft to return to Penn State because he wants to win a national championship. This really beefs up their O-line, which is something Penn State has struggled with in the past. Turning to the wide receiver core, they might not have a superstar wide receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr., but they have solid speed and talent in guys like Lambert Smith, who had a great Rose Bowl performance and racked up the longest reception in Rose Bowl history for an 88-yard touchdown pass. And Kent State transfer Dante Cephas, who racked up just shy of 50 receptions last year for 744 yards with 3 touchdowns, averaging just over 15 yards per catch. Along with these receivers are solid tight ends in Theo Johnson and Tyler Warren, who have high expectations and are expected to make big strides this upcoming season. Flipping the ball to the defensive side, they have a preseason All-American on the defensive line in Chop Robinson, in the secondary with Kalen King, and in their star linebacker, which we've already talked about, Abdul Carter. So Penn State has finally filled this quarterback position with an elite 5-star quarterback in Drew Aller, and they also have amazing talent spread throughout their entire roster. And when you pair that with their schedule this year, they definitely have the potential to make some noise. Now, will they win the Big Ten and see their first playoff appearance? I don't know. College football is so unpredictable, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if they did. That's everything we need to cover for today's video, but before we wrap it up, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, as it really helps me get this content out to more people like you who love this sport. Again, these are all just my thoughts, so drop yours in the comments as well about how you think Penn State's going to do this season. If you got any other video ideas you'd like me to do, drop those as well. I'll make sure to respond to every single comment. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.